Hello, everyone, and welcome to 4C Markets. I am your host, Alejandro and Serhii. This is my co-host, Serhii, and today we're going to be talking about SpaceX. Super exciting subject. Serhii, what do you know about SpaceX, man?
Well, I heard that it will be the biggest IPO in history, right? And regarding the SpaceX itself, I think it's pretty cool company. Uh, Once in a while, I read a book about Matrona and Varela, which is called Tree of Life. And the basic idea behind it, except all of this really interesting philosophical question about the mind and consciousness, is actually that life itself, it's pretty interesting concept, which is currently lives on our planet only. So the main idea of life is to expand to new spaces. So look at the evolution, for example. At first, we conquered all the oceans, then life went to the land, then it went to the air. And basically, that's it. For the last million of years, it didn't went further to our planet. And all of this evolution created like Homo sapiens, and our smart brain created rockets. And now Elon Musk is going to the outer space, basically, and going to Mars and other planets. And basically, it's the first time in the whole history of life itself where we can literally create multi-planet species, and life goes beyond our own planet. So I think it's really, really exciting. And I'm not speaking
Yeah,
about
and
multi-trillion dollar opportunities for all of the minerals, the Dyson spheres, and so on and so forth.
right, and I mean, and that's what's really exciting when you start to think about it, right? Because if we start to look at the times in our evolution where we made leap forwards, we can start with the Renaissance, where everyone was putting a lot of art power and rebuild power, and they were getting to re-energize themselves, right? That was like the whole Renaissance. It was energy, but it was like human energy coming in and giving it to the people. That's basically how I can narrow it down. Then you had the Industrial Revolution, where you had Standard Petroleum, one of the biggest companies that eventually broke down into multiple energy industries, and this gives us the Industrial Revolution of the 1900s. And then right after that, we kind of stagnated, and then we used conflict to grow. So we had like World War I and World War II, and this was like we were utilizing our industry in order to bomb each other, unfortunately. But
Yeah, it's
then
still
where's
going
that
the
leave
same.
us?
You can see for the
Yeah, I know,
Cold
right? Things still
War, you
change.
can see
It's
this
crazy.
rivalry between United States and China. So it's all about resources. Who will take Africa? Who will take oceans?
That is exactly it. And so now we have a new revolution. We have the AI revolution. Like everyone is pushing through and they're reutilizing all of this. But if we take one step back before the AI revolution, we had the crypto revolution, right? That's when we start to have to build up data centers in order to push massive amount of power so that you could mine crypto. And now you're reutilizing, you're repurposing a lot of this infrastructure in order to have AI, so that AI can be the energy consumer. But then that falls short because there's only so much that you can do on one planet. If we are going to be talking about all of the power that we can generate here, it's massive, but is it really enough? And is it enough power there to propel us into the next stage of our exploration? So that's when we can get into things like the Dyson Sphere, right? If you think about what the Dyson Sphere actually is, well, it is basically a way to consume energy from your star, from your nearest star, and give it to your own planet and then your system, right? Like the rest of the planets. And so we get less than 1% of the power of the sun here on Earth, and that's enough to power life, right? If the sun dies, we die. But if you could actually start collecting more power by basically creating, and we're gonna need a new term for this, right? Because the Dyson sphere goes around the sun. But what if you create a sphere that captures the sun power, but it's not around the sun, it's actually around our planet? What are we gonna call that? The Musk sphere? I don't know. Like we have to come up with a name for it. But that's what's getting built. That's actually what's getting built, right? It's like gigawatts of electricity or power, because I don't know if it'll even be electricity. Like at this stage, I'm thinking solar energy, right? What kind of energy are we gonna be looking at? Whatever the power is, whatever that energy is, it's going to be utilized to power the data centers that are going to float in space. And this takes care of a lot of problems. Heat. You no longer have to worry about heat. You're in space. It's cold, you know? you don't have to worry about batteries because there's no reason to store the power. If you want more, you just get it. There's no reason to store it. Unless you're like, gonna put in the satellites, but even the satellites don't have to really store a lot of power, so the batteries become a lot smaller. Cheap microfacturing, right? Like microfacturing. Even if you like say that you're gonna run out of chips, at the rate that we're building these microchips, we're gonna run out of power first before we run out of like chips. We're not gonna have enough power to
No power.
turn them
Actually,
on.
the most power goes to AI because you
Yeah,
remember this
exactly.
case with 6 gigawatts factory, which is one of top AI companies is building. So basically, they took Louisiana and now want to build a huge data center for training AI, and they need like 6 gigawatts of power. But the grid, when they came to grid and said, okay, we need this much of power, they said, guys, we cannot provide you. The biggest city nearby is like only 50 megawatts. It's like order of magnitude smaller. So they had to like buy the gas turbines in Europe, disassemble it, ship it to US, and actually in a like couple of months or probably like a couple of weeks, they built from scratch 400 megawatts powering substation for their data center. And it was really interesting why they have chosen Louisiana, because there is like good climate, there is a lot of water, because you need this heat to be removed, right? And it gives you a lot of constraints because when we are talking about like it's the next AI revolution, so all the power goes for model training, for inference, and like a couple of days before, I have been watching the like interview with Anthropic founder, and he said very interesting idea that they want to like invest like $1 billion into the data center just to run like AI lab of very very smart agents who will do and actually invent new stuff. And it's like a huge space for exploration of what possible futures will be, and you need a lot of compute for this, you need a lot of power on this, and as a result you will have a lot of heat coming out. And when everyone is saying, okay, you don't need Dyson Sphere, what will you use it for it? And basically, what is Dyson Sphere? It's like constellation of satellites with some compute, like probably NVIDIA or some other GPUs, or the more advanced chips that are flying around the sun. Was initially Dyson Sphere was a fixed structure, but there is very interesting paper out there that proves that you cannot build fixed structure, otherwise it will collapse. So what most likely it will be like a set of satellites, something very similar to Starlink, which Elon Musk is building at the moment, which are communicating through the optical channels, through the lasers. But at the same time, like if so very good question where you will put it, like closer to sun or further from the sun. So if you put it like too close to the sun, so basically there is another problem comes out. For example, if you disassemble Mercury as the first planet, you will have enough material, basically, imagine to disassemble the whole planet to build like the shell around the sun. You need like that much of material. So actually the
And
problem
that's
arises
when
that there will
yeah,
be
and
so
that's when we
much
start.
infrared radiation, so it will increase like our temperature on our planet like 5 degrees. So there is also a good choice where you can actually build this Dyson Sphere. Will it be like
and
asteroid belt? Will it be near the sun?
and these are these are all the things that we have to think about. And so that's why, like, as we start to colonize, space, and as we start to become a space berry species, we're gonna have to start looking at all of these different things. And this is our first leap forward, because this is not even a step anymore, man. Like a step, what now the leap of getting to the moon was just like a tiny step. Now we're actually talking about colonizing our initial atmosphere, right? Like just like right outside our planet, so we can build data centers and colonize the power of the sun. Use that in order for us to take the next leap, which is gonna be like, how do we, how do we become a species that is multiplanetarial, right? Then we solve Fermi's paradox. Fermi said, like, where is everybody? And I get to say, we are everybody, right? Like, we're going to be the ones who's going to be out there. And then, like, the other planets are going to be like, watch out, the Earthlies are coming, right? We're going to be like, yeah, here we are, you know? Anyways, but that brings us into very interesting topics. Like, first of all, what is SpaceX? What do they do? Who are they? And why are they there? So what is SpaceX? Well, it's actually three companies right now. SpaceX is a company that launches rockets into space. right? It is a company that has satellites in space already. And then it is also an internet company, which is what they do to the satellites. So you have rockets, you have internet and satellites, and then you have AI infrastructure. And then they are on the side as a derivative building the power requirements for this. So it's not like they're going out and saying, we're going to use money to pay the grid in order to power us. They're saying the grid doesn't have enough power. So we are going to just, bypass all of these things that the grid cannot give us, and we're just going to build in space. And when you think about that, the direct correlation that I can create or that comes to my mind is think about like the countries that did not have regular telephone lines to communicate with each other, especially like in villages and stuff. China has a lot of this. In the United States, there's also some of this. But basically, instead of laying down lines that would then communicate telephones, they actually just gave everybody cell phones. They said, you know what, we're just going to leap forward. There's no need to retrograde our infrastructure so that everybody can have a telephone on their desk. We're just going to like jump forward and give them cell phones, and they can communicate with the satellite. Right,
Let's just
exactly.
build the future technologies to keep
Exactly.
up with space. At the same
And that's
time,
what.
like if you look, for example, at the SpaceX structure, so like rockets, they're not like super profitable. So the major income they're actually getting from this telecom operations and satellites constellations. So this will actually power the Mars and all the rest projects that they will have. And rockets is just, it was really interesting how they build it. So they like analyze the whole infrastructure of like how previous rockets would be built. And at the same time, it appears that there are a lot of inefficiencies there. So they have done it like all internally from A to Z. And that's where they made like their like literally alpha, as we call in the financial world. And now it is like small components, small engines that powers the rest of huge vision, whereas they have the technology for satellites, communication, and literally it can go much, much further and far beyond. So even if they will not be doing like it directly, so they will be the only proxy for the rest of the companies on the whole planet, on the whole world, actually, to do it cheaply and to put other types of technologies out there in space. So
And to put it in and to put it in terms that are very earthbound, basically they're building the highway, they're building the power source, and they're building the communication layer for AI in space. And I'm sharing my screen now. This is Starship 12, and it's just a flight test, and I thought it was a super cool image because it basically shows how far we've gone. Like if you ever look at what space exploration used to look like, and how bulky and how the rockets look, these rockets have just leaped forward into what they can accomplish, and how much power they need and everything has been reduced because of the efforts of SpaceX in general. And then if we look at this particular short video that I liked, so what is happening here is that this particular ship came about, and what they were doing is they were trying to show what is going to be inside the rockets. And that's what's really interesting, because these rockets are, this is just everybody being super excited, these rockets are being utilized to put slim satellites into space, right? And one of these rockets, I think they were able to deploy something like 75 demo satellites in one launch. And what we were talking about earlier was how it is that, like, how are we going to get the infrastructure for the Elon Sphere? And I really hope people coin this term Elon Sphere, because I mean the guy owns it, right? Like, yeah, like, because you had Dyson Sphere, he was talking about like wrapping a sphere around the sun. Now we have Elon Musk actually going out there and putting a sphere around the earth to collect power so that we can power the AI that goes with it. But why
actually, I
is
think
this?
even you can like call it already Elon Sphere because I think they have around like 14 or 15,000 satellites already orbiting the Earth, and this is
Okay.
literally the half of all satellites which are out of there. So
So
it's
we're already
already
building the Elon
human
Sphere, right?
sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. And then but then why is this company profitable? So this is what I want to get into. It's actually the fact sheet of SpaceX. So if we look here, um, basically right now we have like $370 billion of space-enabled solutions, and then the Starlink broadband is going to 890. If we fast forward all the way to the enterprise applications, this is basically the applications that can be generated from this. This is like the largest time in human history, because now we're looking at 22.7 trillion on this, and then the total addressable market. This is the addressable market is what is missing, right? Like if you think about the Tesla story, we were missing an electrical power, and then Elon and his companies were able to go through and build the infrastructure, build the cars, and take advantage of carbon credits in order for him to utilize that to get more capital to propel his company forward. And now, they're more than just a car company. They're building robots. They're building a lot of very impressive things, and it's all because of the power. And so he's going into space to say, you know what, Earth is not giving us enough power. We need to like go directly to the source, and our nearest source is the sun. Now, if we could expand large enough, we could actually take power from the entire galaxy, but that is like an entirely different conversation, right? That is
I
next
think
level.
it's
That's when you're
like
taking power from a black hole,
fourth
right?
or
That's
fifth civilization development level.
exactly.
We'll
But
get to that.
I mean, at the stage we're going, who knows, man? Maybe 100 years from now, we'd be like, yeah, remember when we took the sun? We're gonna take the galaxy now. Like, look at that black hole. Looks delicious. Let's go ahead and suckle the power from it. Anyways, but right now we're looking at a $28.5 trillion industry, and this is what people are betting on, right? Because the company is coming out the day after tomorrow. It has 555 million shares, and you can participate on this. Like I am in line to get myself about 2,000 shares of this company, right? That's my ticket. Now, because there's so much demand for this, we don't know how many shares will actually be provided to you. But, I signed up for it. It's basically you go in and you tell your broker, whoever your broker is, that you want to buy these shares, and they usually have a few steps. And you have to say, yes, I agree to all of these different things that I need to agree to. And I want to buy X number of shares. A lot of my friends, some of them are buying like 10 shares. I have friends who are buying like 2 shares. I'm not sure if like somebody who has a larger order will have a bigger take, or smaller order will have a bigger take. Either way, there's a lot of people that are going in here. And the reason why that's interesting is because right now, basically, we're saying that the demand for these shares is larger than the number of shares that is available, right? Like I was looking at this article, the bull and the bear cases for SpaceX from Axios. And basically, the bull case is that SpaceX will generate hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue by 2030, despite looking less than $19 billion. And that's why people are going in there and buying these shares, not because of what the company is worth right now, but because of the potential of this company to be worth $30 trillion, right? So this is a company that is saying we are going to be able to become worth, what is that, to 1.75 trillion out of 28.5. In my head, doing quick math, that's like 20 times bigger. Of course, my math is horrible, so I'm gonna have to say he check my numbers. But either way, if you buy the share for 135 and it goes 20 times larger, and it grows uh exponentially, then you could end up like micro units, right? Micro units in March was worth $300. Now it's worth about $1,000. So this is a logarithmic change. So because we have this here and we are having this growth, that's what we need to try to take into consideration. The fact that we have this very, very, very large company that is ready and able to take on these challenges, right? And they're not just like a company putting rockets into space. This is a company building the infrastructure we're going to need to propel our species forward. Another thing that is super interesting in regards to the supply is that the energy supply for AI is just like growing massively, from 2020 until now. That like it's expected that by 2034, we're gonna need like 1.4 terawatts of power. I don't know if we can build that between now and 2034. That's like 9 years from now. And if you're just looking at the red tape, like we're gonna need more power for AI than we actually need for our own homes. So that's why putting it in space makes so much sense. And then as far as like the satellite details that we have, if you look at the data centers, we're saying that at peak compute power, it requires 150 kilowatts. This is from June 9, 2026, and is, data center dynamics. And so I was looking at these numbers. A kilowatt of power, like your refrigerator consumes like what is it, like 1 kilowatt? Maybe no, not even that, like point something kilowatt. Like it's something tiny. And at peak performance, this data center is consuming like the entire city's worth of power. So the fact
Yeah, because
that
I said
now
in
we have,
Louisiana, the biggest city near that factory was 50 kilowatts. And this
right?
is like 1 day 50, like 3 cities.
And this is like 3 cities worth, and this is what the data centers are requiring. So the case for the data centers is that the demand for AI compute is so rapidly accelerating that space-based data centers are going to take care of a lot of problems. The first problem that they're going to be taking care of is that it's no longer going to be like, how do we keep this cool? Like, how do we cool down these factories of electricity? Because they're in space. Like the power can just go anywhere, right? And you actually want, maybe you can reuse that heat for something. Maybe you can take that infrared heat and reutilize it to keep things warm if you need to. So that's one. Second one is you don't need batteries, right? Because here you need batteries to store the power when you're not using it so you can use it later. In space, you don't need that. You always have access to the sun. And then the third one is that we are not going to run out of power even as the capacity to build microchips continues to increase. So they can pump out microchips as quickly as they can build them, and we're not going to run out of power. What are we going to run out of then, right? Because something's got to give. Basic materials. That is literally what we are going to need to look into next, is where are we going to get the raw materials to get all this stuff? So right now we have the infrastructure, we have all of this massive growth, and we have a company that is poised to be worth $30 trillion, right? 28.5 trillion. So that's why the IPO is so very exciting and it's happening in 2 days. And the next problem to solve for is going to be raw materials to get all of this built. But we have boundless materials in space, It's going to be a matter of saying, like, how quickly can we get to the next large body and extract it from it so that we don't have to take it from our Earth and put it in space. Maybe we can get it from the moon. Maybe we can get it from Mars. I'm not sure if it's feasible to get it from the asteroid belt, or maybe go backwards and get it from Venus or from Mercury. Maybe those are going to be the challenges that we want to face next. But either way, what we have right now is a very large opportunity to invest in a company that is looking forward. How does that work monetarily? Yeah,
There is also will be a good question from the audience, like how do you invest in the pre-IPO company which shares are not still out there? Because
it's
a lot of my friends are asking me like, Sergey, like how to participate and so on and so forth.
it's not idea. It's ideal in support conference. So what you need to do is you have the COTP, which is basically when conditional offer to purchase. Yeah, it's like it's basically a conditional offer to purchase. What you're saying on the conditional offer to purchase for the IPO is you're going to your broker and you tell your broker that you want to secure allocations for retail investors to allow them to submit a COTP specifying how many shares they are willing to buy of an expected price range, right? So that's just very technically saying, go to your broker and then submit a request to buy this number of shares at the open price when the shares become available. So just remember, this term is COTP. This is what you're looking for. In your broker, look for the COTP. You're going to have a few forms, and then you're going to say that you want to get SpaceX, right? You just say SpaceX, and you can always like pick up your phone and call your broker and literally tell them, I want to buy SpaceX on June 12th, 2 days from now, And, just a word of caution, make sure that you trust whoever your broker or your financier is, because somebody might try to scam you and tell you, yeah, I can get you shares for SpaceX. Make sure you go to a good broker, like, Robinhood or Schwab or Interactive Brokers. don't just trust, John 3 streets from now who calls you up and tells you, give me $1,000 and I'll get you SpaceX, right? Like actually make sure you do your due diligence and you confirm how to enter the COTP for this particular case.
And for example, in Charles Schwab, so how exactly the process in detail looks like?
How does it look in detail? Well, in order for me to do that, I will have to like expose my account and I want to do that. But
Can you
basically,
just describe at least theoretically what
right.
people A look like? So you said like price range. How do you put this price range, and what shall you expect, and what will happen with the price after the IPO starts?
So
Because for in Facebook, it just fell at some point. So like, are the expectations, and what are the risks for the audience?
okay, so those are all very good questions. So the very first thing you want to do is just on your broker, look how to invest in IPOs at Schwab, or how to invest in IPOs. This one is for Charles Schwab. This is my platform, and I'm a big advertiser of or advertiser for Charles Schwab. Although like they don't fund our channel, but we do like them a lot. So if anyone from Charles Schwab is listening, we are saying you guys are like pretty amazing. So thanks for building a platform that is so user friendly. Um, anyways, what you want to do on the initial public offering is you want to go to a page on your broker that will actually describe to you how to do this. So how to find and research upcoming IPOs. In here, before investing in an IPO, investors need to find the upcoming offerings that they are eligible to purchase. And in Charles Schwab, it's super easy. You literally just call them and you tell them, hey, what are the IPOs that are coming? I want to buy into this. You do your research. They'll give you the dates. They'll give you the examples of what you need to do. And then here, there's this short video, which we'll post on our website, but the steps are pretty straightforward. Verify the IPO offering window is open, because when the window opens, you have to be available and have the commitment to buy this. You don't actually have to have the money at that time. You just have to say, I'm going to buy it. On the day of purchase, you need to have enough margin for your purchase, or you need to have enough money to buy it, right? Like I said, I'm going to be buying 2,000 shares, so that's $270,000. So you just need to make sure that this is what you're getting into. But you don't have to buy that large amount, right? Like if you just want to buy 1 or 2 shares, think about it like this. If you're a Starbucks fan, every cup of coffee is costing you $4. If you simply don't buy a cup of coffee for the next 2 months, you can participate in the shares, right? Like just buy yourself drip coffee. Um, Submit a conditional offer to purchase. That's what this is. This is what I was referring to, Star COTP. And this is when you're saying, I am going to buy this particular IPO. In this case, it's going to be SpaceX. And you define how many shares of this you want to buy. Here are the risks. This is what you were asking. So it is a brand new IPO. So there's limited financial history, which means it's not going to have any fundamentals. There is a potential for elevated volatility. This is when you can take advantage of things. You can buy a certain number of shares and say, you know what? I'm going to keep this while the price is going up. If I see that the price drops by a certain amount, I'm going to sell a certain set of shares. This is called trimming. So in my case, I'm buying 2,000. I'm going to hold them. And my limit, which, actually I don't want to say in the channel, because if I say my limit, the people are going to bet against me, and 2,000 shares, although 555 million shares out of 2,000 is not that large number. But anybody listening and doing the aggregation can probably start to think like, okay, if I short this share, this is what I'm going to end up getting. So I'll keep my technicals off the channel for now. But what you want to do is you want to set a threshold for the amount of money you are willing to see drop before you actually exit, right? So you want to make sure that you have that in mind, that you have the numbers that you feel comfortable with. And it is so sensitive to market sentiment, right? Because the IPO performance is often heavily influenced by the investor's risk appetite, as well as the economic and market conditions. If we look at the S&P 500 over the past 2 weeks, it has been so volatile and unpredictable, right? Like if you look at, for example, what happened last Friday, the S&P 500 dropped by like $300. So to put that in perspective, it's worth $7,800. It dropped all the way down to $7,500. And the leaders of this were Micron, like microcomputing, MU, and STX Seagate. And so these are the companies that are building the microchips that are powering AI. But because these companies are so incredibly powerful right now, whenever something happens in the market, these are the first companies that people get nervous about, just because their price has increased exponentially. So you have to take into consideration that there's all these risks. Why am I saying that it is actually a smart move to buy, even with all this risk? Well, there's a valuation of $75 billion, but if you look at the news, there's already demand for $250 billion, right? This is on Reuters. So there's a news article on Reuters. Let's see if I can find it. Reuters, SpaceX, 250p. Let's see if it comes up. Yep, here we go. SpaceX drew over 250 billion in investor demand, and the company is not even out yet. So the company is basically saying we're going out to get $75 billion, and people are saying that's cool. We're gonna give you 250 billion. That means that for every dollar you put in, you're gonna get $4 back. That's just incredible, you know. And I have not seen anything like this. And I'm not the only one. This is the talk of the town. Everyone who's looking at this company is saying this is an incredible IPO. We're gonna see if it's bigger than Aramco, which was the oil company from Saudi Arabia that came out. That was like the largest blockbuster today. And so we're gonna see if this one can beat it. If this one beats it, it's gonna beat it by tenfold. And then afterwards, there's gonna be volatility. So then afterwards, you have to like watch the market, trim if you need to, buy more if you want to. But my recommendation today is try to enter this IPO because you don't want to miss out on this opportunity to be part of the next stage in space exploration and into the AI bonanza, you know? And that's what I had for today.
This is fascinating, Alejandro. So thank you for like sharing this information because it's really interesting, like how to participate, especially for people who have never been participating in the like similar IPOs. So I think it will be really, really useful episode.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. And that's everything. I hope that we ran a little bit longer than we used to. I'm not sure like how many minutes it is. Yeah, we're at 32 minutes. We should try to keep it under 15, but this was such an exciting episode that we just couldn't stop talking about it. So glad we got it out there. We're gonna try to post it before the 12th. Because if we post it after the 12th, then people are gonna be watching like old news rather than like what's upcoming. So we're gonna try to get this out there. So I want to say thanks for watching. Welcome as always to Forcing Markets. And we're gonna, be putting some links for the stuff that we showed on the comments. And that's everything we have for today. Subscribe, leave us your comments. Anything you guys want to see on the show, let us know, and we'll definitely make an episode about it.